Before smartphones, before social media feeds, before typing bubbles and read receipts, there was AOL Instant Messenger. In the mid to late 1990s, the internet was still strange, slow, and deeply personal. Most homes had a single computer. It usually sat in a shared space, a living room, a den, sometimes a bedroom if you were lucky. Getting online was an event. You listened to the dial up tone scream and hiss as the modem negotiated its way into cyberspace. And once you were connected, you stayed connected because disconnecting meant waiting all over again. America Online, better known simply as AOL, was how millions of people first experienced the internet. It was not just a service provider, it was a walled garden. AOL gave users email, chat rooms, news, games, and curated content, all wrapped inside one controlled environment. For many households, AOL was the internet. But even inside that ecosystem, something was missing. The internet was still largely static. You browsed websites, you read pages, you posted on message boards and waited hours or days for replies. Communication existed, but it was slow, fragmented, and impersonal. Then in 1997, AOL introduced something that changed everything: AOL Instant Messenger, or AIM. At first glance, it was deceptively simple. A small window, a list of names, green dots, yellow dots, red dots, online, away, offline. You typed a message. Someone responded instantly. No refreshing, no waiting, no public audience. Just you and them. This was revolutionary. Instant messaging existed before AIM, but it had never reached this scale and it had never felt this human. AIM was free. You did not need to be an AOL subscriber. Anyone could download it. And once you did, you were no longer just browsing the internet, you were inhabiting it. The most important feature of AIM was not messaging itself, it was the buddy list. For the first time online, people were represented not by posts or usernames buried in forums, but by presence. Your friends existed in a list. You could see when they arrived. You could see when they left. You could see when they stepped away. The internet suddenly had a heartbeat. Being online became a social state. Screen names became identities. You did not use your real name. You crafted something that represented who you were or who you wanted to be. Song lyrics, inside jokes, dramatic phrases, random numbers, all stitched together into names that felt permanent. You did not change your screen name lightly. It was how people knew you. AIM profiles added another layer. You could write a short bio, post lyrics, quotes, jokes, or emotional confessions. It was not about broadcasting to the world, it was about leaving a trace for the people who found you. Away messages transformed silence into communication. Instead of being gone, you left a message behind. Studying, eating dinner, at work, watching a movie, or something far more cryptic. A lyric, a vague emotional line, a subtle signal meant for one specific person on your list. You did not need to say anything directly. Your away message said it for you. This changed how people interacted. Conversations did not begin with greetings, they began with observation. You noticed someone came online, you waited a moment, you decided whether to message first. You overthought every word because once it was sent, it was sent. There was no undo, no edit, no typing indicator to reassure you. Every message carried weight. AIM also introduced something subtle but powerful: control. You could block people, you could warn them, you could remove them from your list. Social consequences existed, but they were quiet and personal. If someone disappeared from your buddy list, you noticed. If someone blocked you, the silence was unmistakable. Friendships formed and ended inside that small window. For teenagers and young adults especially, AIM became a private world inside the home. Parents could see the screen, but they could not hear the conversations. AIM felt secret even when it was not. It felt like independence. And most importantly, AIM felt human. It was not optimized. It was not algorithmic. It did not push content. It waited. It existed only when people showed up. When nobody was online, nothing happened. That was the magic. The internet at this time felt smaller, not because fewer people were online, but because you knew exactly who you were there with. AIM did not connect you to everyone, it connected you to your people. By the late 1990s and into the early 2000s, AIM quietly embedded itself into daily life. Homework sessions ran alongside chat windows. Late night conversations stretched for hours. Relationships started, deepened, fractured, and ended, all through text on a gray background. And while AOL continued to market itself as a media company, AIM became something else entirely. It became the emotional center. of the early internet, and this was only the beginning. By the early 2000s, AOL Instant Messenger was no longer just software, it was routine, it was culture. It was the place where lives unfolded in real time, one line of text at a time. For millions of users, especially teenagers and college students, AIM was the first thing opened after connecting to the internet. Web browsing came second. Email came later. AIM came first, because that was where people were. The buddy list had become a social map. Who was online mattered. Who was not online mattered just as much. Seeing a familiar screen name light up could change your entire mood. Seeing someone you hoped to talk to stay offline felt personal, even when it was not. The sounds became iconic. The door opening when someone signed on, the door closing when they left, message alerts that cut through silence late at night. Those sounds conditioned behavior. People learned to glance at the screen instantly when they heard them. They learned to recognize who had arrived without even looking. AIM was teaching people how to be constantly aware of others, long before smartphones made that normal. Screen names evolved into social signals. Some people kept theirs simple, others made them deliberately cryptic. Capitalization, spacing, and numbers all carried meaning. Changing your screen name could feel like reinventing yourself. It was noticed. People commented on it. They asked why you changed it. Identity on AIM was fluid, but never anonymous. Your screen name carried history. Away messages became their own language. They were not just status updates, they were emotional broadcasts disguised as absences. Song lyrics were the most common. Lines from emo, pop punk, and alternative music dominated profiles and away messages. The music did not just influence the culture, it merged with it. AIM did not create emo culture, but it amplified it. High contrast webcam photos, angled faces, hair partially covering one eye, dramatic lyrics pasted into profiles, emotional honesty without confrontation. AIM gave that aesthetic a home. People checked away messages obsessively, not to see what someone was doing, but to see how they were feeling. A single line could spark conversations, arguments, or reconciliation. Silence could mean peace, or it could mean avoidance. Every detail was overanalyzed because it was all anyone had. AIM also introduced social mechanics that felt trivial at the time, but shaped online behavior for years to come. The warning system allowed users to warn others, increasing a visible percentage next to their name. Enough warning, and a user would be temporarily restricted. It was playful on the surface, but it reinforced power dynamics. Friend groups knew who had influence, who could push limits, who could not. Blocking someone was definitive. There were no explanations, no notifications, just disappearance. Being blocked felt like being erased, and unblocking someone later carried its own unspoken meaning. Romantic relationships thrived on AIM. Flirting happened slowly, cautiously. Conversations stretched late into the night. Confessions felt safer through text. Breakups happened there, too. Some people ended relationships without ever speaking out loud. AIM was where people learned how to communicate emotionally without facial expressions or tone. They learned how to read intent from punctuation. A period felt cold, an ellipsis felt uncertain, too many question marks felt desperate. Too few words felt dismissive. This was not written anywhere. It was learned collectively. College campuses relied on AIM heavily. Dorm rooms glowed late at night with open chat windows. Group conversations formed organically. Study groups coordinated. Friendships deepened. AIM usernames were exchanged as casually as phone numbers. And yet, AIM never tried to dominate attention. It did not demand constant engagement. You logged in when you wanted. You left when you needed to. The software waited patiently either way. This was part of why AIM felt authentic. It did not chase users. Users came to it. At its peak, AOL Instant Messenger had tens of millions of active users. It was installed on nearly every internet-connected computer in schools, homes, and libraries. It crossed age groups and social circles. It worked the same way for everyone. And despite its massive reach, AIM never felt corporate, it felt personal. This was partly due to its simplicity. The interface barely changed, the colors were muted, the design was functional, there were no feeds, no ads inside conversations, no algorithm deciding who you should talk to. The most important thing AIM did was nothing at all. It stayed out of the way. This period marked the height of AIM's influence. It was embedded so deeply into daily life that people stopped noticing it as a product. It simply existed like a utility, like electricity or running water. But unlike those utilities, AIM depended entirely on habits, and habits, once broken, are difficult to restore. The internet was about to change. The decline of AOL Instant Messenger did not arrive with an announcement or a dramatic failure. It arrived quietly, through convenience, through shifting habits, and through a changing internet that no longer waited. In the early to mid 2000s, broadband internet replaced dial up at a rapid pace. The sound of modems faded. Always on connections became normal. The internet was no longer something you entered and exited, it was simply there. This single change altered everything. When users were always connected, the emotional impact of signing on disappeared. The door opening sound no longer marked arrival because nobody ever really left. Presence lost its meaning when it became constant. At the same time, new platforms began to emerge, each offering a different kind of connection. MySpace allowed users to broadcast identity publicly rather than privately. Facebook focused on real names and persistent profiles. Text messaging moved conversations off the computer entirely. Communication stopped being something you scheduled and started being something that followed you. AIM struggled to adapt to this shift. The software was built for a world where logging in mattered. Its core experience depended on scarcity. When everyone was always online somewhere else, AIM's greatest strength became a weakness. AOL attempted updates, new versions added features, redesigned interfaces and integrations. But these changes often felt disconnected from how people were actually communicating. The software grew heavier, slower, less intuitive. What had once been invisible now demanded attention. Mobile was the critical turning point. As smartphones began to enter daily life, users expected communication to move with them. Text messages worked instantly on phones. Social media apps adapted quickly. AIM lagged behind. Its mobile versions were clunky, limited, and inconsistent. Conversations fractured across devices. People did not quit AIM because they disliked it. They quit because it was no longer necessary. Facebook Messenger offered real-time chat tied to existing social graphs. SMS did not require a computer at all. Later, platforms like Skype, WhatsApp, and iMessage continued that shift. Communication became persistent, searchable, and portable. AIM remained anchored to the desktop. AOL as a company also struggled. It no longer defined the internet. Its identity shifted repeatedly, from service provider to media company to something undefined. AIM, once a flagship product, became an afterthought inside a corporate structure focused elsewhere. Without clear direction, AIM stagnated. Users noticed subtle signs first. Friends stopped logging in regularly, buddy lists grew quieter, conversations moved elsewhere, but rarely all at once. AIM stayed installed long after it stopped being used. It lingered out of habit. Eventually, people stopped opening it altogether. By the early 2000s, AIM's user base had shrunk dramatically. The software still worked, the sound still played, but the rooms were empty. There was no single replacement for what AIM had been. Instead, its functions were scattered across dozens of platforms. Messaging existed everywhere, but intimacy was diluted. Conversations were faster but shallower. Presence was constant but less meaningful. In December 2017, AOL officially shut down AOL Instant Messenger. There was no ceremony, no mass farewell event, just a date announced quietly, marking the end of a service that once defined online life. Some users logged in one last time. Old buddy lists reappeared, names frozen in time, away messages untouched for years, conversations that would never continue. When AIM went offline, it did not just take software with it. It took a way of interacting that the internet would never recreate. The internet had grown larger, louder, and more connected than ever. But something had been lost along the way. AOL Instant Messenger did not fail because it was bad. It faded because the world moved on without it. When AOL Instant Messenger shut down in December of 2017, there was no collective countdown, no trending hashtags, no farewell banner that millions gathered to watch disappear. For most of the internet, AIM had already been gone for years, but for the people who remembered it, the moment carried weight. Some users logged in one final time. They scrolled through buddy lists that looked like time capsules, screen names that had not changed in a decade, friends they had not spoken to since high school or college, people who were once central to daily life, now reduced to a name and a gray icon. There were no archives for most of it, no cloud backups, no export button for chat logs that lived on hard drives long since wiped or lost. Entire relationships vanished when AIM went offline, not erased maliciously, just quietly forgotten by technology that no longer existed to remember them. This is something modern platforms rarely allow. Today, conversations persist. They are searchable, stored, backed up automatically, but permanence changes how people speak. AIM existed in a space where conversations felt temporary, and because of that, they felt honest. You said things on AIM that you would never post publicly. You admitted fears, you shared excitement, you vented frustration late at night because the moment would pass, and so would the words. There were no likes, no shares, no public metrics. The value of a conversation was measured only by the person on the other side of the screen. AIM also represented a time when the internet still felt small enough to feel safe. Not because it was actually safer, but because it was quieter. You chose who had access to you. You chose when to be available. Silence was allowed. Modern platforms do not reward silence. Today, connection is constant. Notifications stack endlessly. Presence is assumed. If someone does not respond, it feels like rejection rather than absence. AIM taught people that stepping away was normal, expected, and communicated clearly. That clarity is rare now. AOL Instant Messenger left a permanent mark on how people understand online communication. Typing indicators, online statuses, read receipts, and private messaging systems all trace their roots back to AIM. The structure changed, but the core idea remained. Yet none of its successors captured the same balance. AIM was not designed to keep users engaged at all costs. It did not monetize attention. It did not optimize behavior. It simply connected people and let them decide what to do next. That is why it cannot be recreated. The internet no longer rewards tools that wait patiently for users to show up. It rewards platforms that pull users in and keep them there. AIM belonged to an era before attention became currency. For those who lived through it, the memory remains vivid. The sound of the door opening, the tension before sending a message, the comfort of seeing a familiar name appear online late at night. Those moments mattered because they were not endless. They existed in a specific place and time. AOL Instant Messenger was not just a messaging app, it was a chapter in how people learned to be human online. And when it closed, it did not just mark the end of a product, it marked the end of an internet that felt personal, quiet, and real. Thank you for watching this story. If you enjoyed learning something new today, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment telling us what you thought of this story.